Welcome back, sinners. It's time for yet another retelling. And I'll be honest, I was not expecting this one to have a cliffhanger like last one. Turns out, it did. And what a cliffhanger. But I want to talk first of all about a very big thing that happened. And why it happened. This was quite a big session for Asaran, our dear monk. You might wonder, well, why was this one big? That sinner is quite simple. This one was quite big because, well, he isn't exactly as bound as he used to be. And the following sessions, you'll have quite a different character. But we'll get to that. And then I'll go over why that happened, because I think it's important for anyone else who wants to DM like me. So, where we left off, Rak was in a bit of a pickle because he had just been told by his lord, his idol, that should they find his heir, they were to kill him, to secure her rights to all of his kingdom, all of his domain. Now, that's not a small ask. Imagine you devoted your entire life to somebody, only for them to then tell you to kill him. No small thing, I think you'll agree. So, he was stuck with a revelation of what to do. Because obviously, as far as he was concerned, well, you have two options. One, go find the Lord, forget about the heir. Or two, find the heir, but then make sure the Lord's dead. They'd have to find him either way, and if he was corrupted in some regard, they're not sure if that's even possible. But if it is, he might come after them. But after a bit of back and forth, the group decided to focus on the initial problem and then come back to this. Because they lacked the information for whereabouts on both anyway. So, to that end, they went and quite quickly found themselves at the Single Cut. Or the One Cut, should I say. The One Cut is a restaurant that features a lot of Bayesianite food sources. Think a lot of like traditional Chinese food, and you've got a good idea of like what kind of food they serve there, right? They're very well known as well for how precise their diced meat is. It's almost like all their cooks are trained killers and are experts at blades. Funny, that. Well, they went to the One Cut, and, well, it was a spicy one. Let's just say their initial entrance was unsubtle as ever, but the place was closed at the time. But quite quickly, they encountered some problems. First of all, the entire place was booby-trapped. Various statues were rigged to drop swords on them, and did do so quite regularly. They eventually learned after the first time, though. Took another time for them to be completely cautious, but let's just say the future times, Asaran went first, and he's far more likely to dodge than Rak is. Rak did get quite the beating, as this is straight after, by the way. They didn't rest, and the nice items I provided them were not yet attuned to. So they were yet to fully utilise their strengths. Now, that being said, Rin's was active due to the joys of how it kind of bound itself to him. I must remember to add that as an attunement slot, though. I did forget to do that. Unfortunately, I am sometimes forgetful of these kind of things. I try my best magic items, but, you know, you always forget something, right? Sometimes people don't. I do. No one's perfect. As much as I try. So, They entered single cut, the one cut. I can call it single cut. Don't know why. And from there, they entered in to a bit of a combat. But the shades they encountered had a ploy. And if I remember correctly, editing me, do pop up are shades, and of course, the new threat, the Draco Hound. Because yes, they had a guardian spirit to summon. A creature born from magic and clay. It would reveal underneath said clay a powerful, ferocious creature. In this case, that would spit acid. And it did a lot of damage to Rak and Asaran. Though, not as much to Asaran. He managed to dodge it. Sadly, as he's a multi-class monk fighter, he did not have evasion, so he did have to take the full, half damage. Rak, however, he got sprayed, about half health. But after they dispatched it, by they I mean Asaran, I believe Rin got a few good shots on it too, though I think Asaran dispensed of it pretty quickly, with a fairly explosive draw strike. Yes, he's taken after Jetstream Sam a little bit. And, yeah. Then, if I recall rightly, Rak managed to finish it off. But still, between the two of them, they also dispatched most of the threats, with Rin long-range sniping a lot of them. From there on... excuse me. From there on, they more cautiously entered the place, going through corridors, and Asaran went first this time, avoiding a few traps. Before that, they noticed the sleeping quarters. This sleeping quarters contained the sleeping area for what were clearly Ironsu warriors. And yeah, they were preparing themselves because they knew they would have to face their own. Once they got past the second round of traps, this being a immaculate little system of explosive sword launching. Yes, the Silent Order are very good when it comes to booby trapping. They then found the drivers of the wagon that they had gone to rescue. However, there's a problem. They were barricaded in via animated benches. Yes, animated benches. But also, the room was trapped. What they didn't find out at the time, but it didn't need to be necessary, much like how there were charms creating illusions, there were also charms that would release toxic gas, killing most living things. So, they knew the room would be gassed, just not how. So they were invited to the courtyard, where, upon entry, the doors would vanish from sight and perception. They were kind of there, but let's just say the man they were dealing with now, Jin Yuma, was quite powerful and quite, how shall we say, in touch with his mistress, the Silent One. The Silent One had bestowed upon him great power, and also great responsibility. And he had not come for the party. He had come for the wagon, the wealth, the information, the items. And the party, well, they had now gotten in the way. So, him and the detachment of 4 Ironsu warriors would deal with them. These Ironsu were requisitioned from a different lord. A Lord Xiao Lian. Lord Xiao Lian, the Lord of Lightning, the boastful lord, as he's often called, is the son of quite the dangerous blue dragon. A creature that had gone to Hidara, actually. Why he'd gone there, no one knows. This ancient, however, is still out there to this day. Maybe the party will encounter him, but his son... Well, his son was a very boastful lord, and saw the party's former lord as a rival. The death of said lord was very saddening to him, but he then took it upon himself to, in a way, restore the honour of his fallen rival. Though his rival will be reborn at some point, he wants to ensure that his rival is the same man he knew. The same being he knew. Because if he's going to face his rival, he wants his rival to be him again. So he can face the individual he respects and loathes. To that end, he allowed a few of his Iron Suit to be given over to the Silent One's order, temporarily. That armour dyed black, to hide their true affiliation. This was to help out Jin, but also more were dispatched for a different purpose. Now the party's fight with Jin was, how shall we say, tumultuous, and Jin was not pulling punches. For you see, Jin is the reason Asuran is the way he is. Bound and enslaved in a way. Jin is responsible for that, because Jin was the one who caught him, and in many ways, sentenced him. Though only by Asuran's teacher's request was he sentenced in this way. Under normal circumstances, Asuran would have been put to the sword. Because you see, Asuran is a bad man. He's a very bad man. One thing I will say, just to quickly cut in, I think for any more of these I do in the future, for later campaigns, I might want to do a streamed session with each player, but also I'd like to do a video with them, where we talk about their character and just have them introduce the character. I think that'd be quite nice for you guys as well. And should they want to review it themselves later. A thing I'm thinking about, but it just crossed my mind while I'm recording this, so thought I'd add that in there. Now, to get back to where we were, Asuran went straight for the Councillor. Him and Jin engaged in a brutal affair. Unfortunately for Asuran, Jin, well, let's just say he trained his ki well. No monk was going to stun him so easily. And through his magical tattoos, on his right hand, a sword would emerge. A blade of acid as much as it was magical steel. In his left, a bow. A bow that could hit 3 creatures at once, might I add. Though, I may need to re-look at those type of abilities later on. To, like, figure out how I want to do them properly. So I'd forgotten until that time that I'd done that. As it'd been a while since I'd made his sheet, and then used it. A little thing I'd mention for any DMs is just, maybe a day before the session, just re-review everything. I didn't, so do as I say, not as I do. I didn't always get it right. But, to that end, the party were getting roughed up. However, this is where we discovered a little team-up. You see, Rak and Rin, they actually worked together really nicely. Rin managed to get off a hold person, and because he's a warlock, a high level one. Now, I will stress, Rin did a lot this session. He got pretty roughed up in some cases. Probably the most hurt he's been in a while. But he also did a very big thing. And I want to stress this, okay? So I worry I don't, like, sell how good Rin is in a fight sometimes. But his hold person, he got it off twice, by the way, basically partly won them the fight. Because it allowed Rak to hit them with advantage, and also crit. I won't stress this enough. When I say the man went Ratomic, he went... You get the point. I better remember to put the clip in for that. I have it for a reason. And Ratomic he did go. Let me stress this. And he dispatched them. Rin was instrumental in this. by the way. Like, I really want to sell this to you, that Rin did so much to make certain that Rak could decimate the warriors. Rak didn't kill them, though. Asaran would have, Rak didn't. Because as far as Rak's concerned, these people are doing their job. They're not traitors, they're not anything else. They are warriors like him. He's Dainsu through and through. He is a warrior of his lord. They are warriors of their lord. So he didn't kill them. And Asaran definitely wanted to kill Jin, that's for certain. But Jin was too much for Asaran. The damage of the weapons and the riposte he could do, because Jin was a lethal combatant. He could riposte, meaning when you attack him, he would force you to reroll. If you miss, and by the way, you'd reroll at disadvantage. If you were to miss, then he would then strike you. So, needless to say, not exactly a fair thing to happen to you. In fact, it hurt a lot. The other thing to mention is his 2 bonus actions. Yes, he can do 2 a turn. He has 3 in particular. 1 he could use once, which was to me. He used that at one point to bring in a pair of shades and a Draco Hound. Thankfully, the party managed to beat him before those became relevant. But he also created 3 zones of silence. Now, I had higher hopes for these, but I probably, in future, will use a different kind of ability. The idea was that these zones would impede a little bit, but they didn't do a lot. And to be fair, I should have remembered they wouldn't do a lot. If anything, they were probably meant to, like, harass Rin a little bit. And Rak, so that they couldn't use their spells as easily. But Rak mostly uses smites. Rin can climb up the wall to get away from them. So, egg on my face there. But it's fine. Now, a big one, also he could do, was a bonus action attack. A not too devastating claw attack, which would lower the AC of the target by 1 if they failed a... I believe it was a dexterity saving throw to avoid the worst of the acid. Rat got hit by that once, but thankfully, between him and Asaran was struggling until he could get away. When he did, he managed to open up on him, and as we jokingly call it, achieved the gungasm. I don't think I have a appropriate clip for that, but if I find one, there will be one. But gungasm being achieved. Oh god. Gungasm being achieved. Rak then managed to hit Jin with one last mighty hit. You see, Rak managed to avoid the worst of the ripostes because he, being a Vengeance Paladin, utilized his Channel Divinity. And he did it masterfully. His Channel Divinity meant that he had advantage on every hit, even the reroll. That's how I ruled it, because it's like, it's still an attack roll. So I was like, yeah, still advantage. So the disadvantage just makes it a normal hit. So he'd never get hit by the riposte, the worst of it anyway. So he managed to, well, masterfully take him down. Now, interestingly, he didn't kill Jin. I asked him what he wanted to do. He chose not to kill him. I made sure to emphasize that Jin liked the information and give him reasons why he wouldn't want to. But then, obviously, he had plenty of reasons to kill him. But he chose not to. They then all had a bit of a heart-to-heart. Because, well, other than Rak getting an upgrade by taking the armor following the Iron Suit, he may respect them, but he needed that plate mail. Which technically was what they were wearing. He only had Splint, I believe, so Rax had an upgrade in AC, which is incredible for him, as he's a great sword-wielding paladin. He doesn't have a shield, so I'm sure he's going to feel real good next session. Now, they had a bit of a chat, because, you see, well, Asaran really wanted Jin dead. Jin had made Asaran go to that temple, made him be bound to the key, made him lose his life, his will, all who he was. And Asran hated him for that. Asran loathed him for that. They had a talk, though. After a bit of posturing and threatening here and there, Jin revealed a few things to them, with the promise and assurance that if they let him go, he would reveal information, but also the council wouldn't get involved, because it turns out the council don't know the full extent of the damage. Because this is where you find out the true evil part of Beijing. The council do not care for human life. Dragon life matters more to them than anyone else. And here's the thing. If they'd find out the Lord had been killed by his own, they'd have punished the entire province, everyone, to the sword. As you might imagine, the party didn't want that. And as much as Asran wanted him dead, well, he chose not to. You might say chose, but barons are. Asran can't make choices, can he? Well, Rak made a very big decision. And he chose the beautiful moment to do so, by the way. I'm very happy with him for that. Because we talked about this. And he told Asran, hold out your hand. Asran held out his hand, and Rak handed him the key. Asran then simply commanded himself, do whatever the hell you want. And so he was free. And quite the transformation, I might add. Editing me, do put in the two pictures before and after, because I think it's important to show the changes. Now, the new picture might not be the final one, but I want to emphasize how different Asran is now, and how different he will be going forward. And I think, from a DM perspective, it'll be very good. But we'll get more on that in a second. Asran was going to kill Jin, but at the last moment, he cut him free, lifted him up and told him, I'm a new man, I'm free. But made very sure to remind Jin that if he was ever to go after the people he cared about, the monster would return. Especially as Jin knows where Asran's family is. He knows a lot about Asran. Man keeps tabs on him. Asran did remove a lock of Jin's fair white hair, but better than dead. Jin, in good faith to Asran, also lent him a remove curse potion. This would temporarily remove the risk of the key taking him over should someone steal the key from him. When he drinks it, he gets a few days to not be under the key's control. Thus, freedom. Now, Asran then stormed out because he realised a few things. One, now he was fully in control of himself, he then realised his hair had been shaven away a long time ago. And he had to get some new wares because he didn't quite enjoy his monastic look after a century of having to be like that. Yes, you heard me right, he was a prisoner in his own will for over a century. So, the half-elf wanted freedom, so he's going to enjoy it now. But he's sticking with the party, he's helping them. He has his own reasons for going to the far west. Because Jin did reveal to them that someone called Shu, yes, that Shu, Shu Luma, had gone west. So the party would pursue him. And Asran went to go get some new wares. That's where we ended it off. Now, I wanted to quickly talk about that, because I appreciate that's the whole thing. Now, let me say, as a DM, I'm very happy that this has happened now. And the reason is because Asran's old ways were an experiment from the player, because he didn't want to be in a leadership-like position. Because he'd always found himself in that position, and he didn't want that. He wanted to give the others a chance. And I think, from a DM perspective, that's very honourable of him to want to do that, but also to want to experiment, to challenge himself. And I think that's really good for a player. But I could tell there were times where he wanted to do something and couldn't by his own rules. And I think he ended up not liking it in the end. Hence why we talked about it. And now going forward, he'll have his freedom. There's a risk he could lose it, but now he has something to lose. But he also has everything to gain from this. Maybe one day he'll be free from it entirely. Who knows? But what I want to say is to my fellow DMs out there, let your players experiment. If it doesn't work out, that's okay, because then they know if it worked for them or not. And maybe, importantly, ask them what they felt worked, what they felt didn't work. And once you've asked them why these things didn't work for them, then if they have any future experiments they want to try, work with them. Help them find what works for them, because at the end of the day, if they're having fun with it, that's what's important. If they're not, then maybe just give them a hand. Give them a helping hand. Allow them to make changes, because the more changes they can make, the more fun they can have with it. And at the end of the day, like I say, it's all about having fun. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, and I do hope you have, please feel free to leave a like and a subscribe if you would be so kind. If you didn't like it, then leave a dislike. Let me know if there's anything I could improve, or if anything you did like. I myself am always experimenting these videos, so trying different things here and there to make them better. But, with that all being said, I've been Baron Zarko. Thank you very much for watching. You can catch me live over on Twitch if you'd be so inclined, but if not, then, again, thank you very much for all the support you guys have been giving me. It means a lot to me. Now, my dear sinners, I must leave you. I will see you soon. Ta-ta for now.